The Duke sat at his desk in the great house and looked at the letter one more time. The candle near his elbow had burned down to a small stub. The wax smelled sweet and a little bitter, like honey left too long in the sun. The room around him was quiet. Only the fire made any noise, and even that was soft, just small pops and the gentle hiss of a log settling deeper into the grate. His name was Alistair Crane, the Duke of Hollowmere, and he was tired in a way that sleep could not fix. The letter was from his mother. She had written to him about a young woman named Maren Ashford. Maren was the daughter of a country gentleman whose land sat near the western edge of the Duke's own estate. The match, his mother wrote, would be sensible. The girl was said to be kind. The girl was said to be modest. The girl was said to have a soft voice and a gentle hand, and all the proper accomplishments that a duchess might need. Alistair set the letter down. He had read those same words before, about other young women, and each time the words had lied. He had been told that Lady Beatrice was sweet, and found out she only spoke sweetly to those above her station. He had been told that Miss Hanbury was modest, and found out she had a list of every titled gentleman in 3 counties, and which one she would settle for at each age. He had been told many things, and each time he had walked into a drawing-room and seen the same painted smile, the same careful curtsy, the same eyes that looked not at him, but at his name and his land, and his rooms full of silver. He was 28 years old. He had inherited the title at 21. For 7 years he had been hunted. He had been chased through ballrooms by women who had been taught to chase. He had been pursued at country dinners by mothers who pretended not to be pursuing. He had been written to by fathers who pretended their letters were about hounds and were really about daughters. He was tired of it. He was so very tired of it. He picked up the letter again and read the last line. "Pray, my son, do not refuse this one before you have at least laid eyes upon her." He sighed. The breath was long and slow and made the candle flame bend. Then he had an idea. It was not, perhaps, a kind idea. It was certainly not a proper idea. But it was, he thought, the only way left to him. If he could not trust what he was told, he must see for himself. And he could not see for himself if every door opened wide the moment his title was spoken. Titles changed people. Titles made people perform. He would not arrive as a duke. He would arrive as no one at all. The next morning, Alistair stood in the small back room of his manor with his old valet, Mr. Penn. The valet was an old man with a long face and hands that shook a little when he poured tea, but his eyes were as sharp as they had been when Alistair was a boy. Penn had known the Duke's father, and the Duke's father before that. He knew when to speak and when to keep his mouth closed. "I will need clothes," Alistair said. "Plain ones. Good enough not to be turned away at a kitchen door, but rough enough that no one will think I am more than a clerk or a messenger or a man travelling through." Penn studied him. "Plain coat, sir, brown wool, boots that have been used, a neckcloth that has been washed more than once but not torn. I have such things in a trunk from the old groom who left us last winter. He was about your size. Find them." Penn did not ask why. He simply nodded. By midday, Alistair was dressed. The brown coat was a little thick at the shoulders. The boots smelled of old leather and saddle soap and something earthy that he could not name. His neckcloth was cream-coloured and not quite straight. He looked at himself in the long mirror in the hall and almost smiled. He looked, he thought, like a man who would be told to use the back stairs. That was what he wanted. He took a small bag with 2 shirts, a single comb, a razor, and a few coins. He took no signet ring. He took no fine pocket watch. He left his sword behind. He saddled a plain bay horse, not the grey that everyone in the county knew was his, but a quiet older mare that had once been used to bring letters up from the village. He set out for the Ashford estate at noon. The road was muddy from a night of rain. The smell of wet earth rose up around him as the mare's hooves cut into it. Somewhere in the hedges a thrush sang twice and then stopped. The wind smelled of cold grass and of the smoke of a far kitchen fire. He let the mare set her own pace. He had not been a free man on a quiet road in a very long time. The Ashford estate was not large. The house was made of pale grey stone with ivy climbing the south wall. The windows were small but clean. A low wooden fence ran around the kitchen garden, and Alistair could see the green tops of carrots and the silver dust of cabbage leaves as he came up the lane. He did not ride to the front door. He went round to the side, where a stable boy was carrying a pail of water. "Pardon, lad," Alistair said. He pitched his voice lower than usual and a little rougher. "Is there a place I might rest the horse? I am travelling to the next village, and the mare has gone lame in the off-hind." The boy looked up. He was perhaps 12, with red hair and a smear of mud across his cheek. "She does not look lame to me, sir." Alistair almost laughed. The boy was right. The mare was perfectly sound. "It comes and goes," Alistair said. The boy shrugged, as if to say grown men were strange and there was no helping it. "You may put her in the third stall. Master is not at home, but Miss Murren will not mind." "Miss Murren?" "The young lady. She runs the place when her father is away, which is most of the time these days." Alistair dismounted. His boots sank a little into the wet ground. "Thank you," he said. The boy nodded and went back to his pail. Alistair led the mare into the stable. The smell of hay rose up around him, sweet and dry, mixed with the warm animal smell of horses and the cooler smell of stone. He took his time settling the mare in the stall. He brushed her down with his own hands. He had not brushed a horse himself in 5 years. The motion came back at once, easy and steady, and he found that he liked the feel of it. The brush hissed softly against the mare's coat. The mare leaned into the pressure, sighed, and closed her eyes. He was still in the stall when a voice spoke behind him. "You are doing that all wrong." He turned. A young woman stood in the doorway of the stable. The light was behind her, so at first he saw only her shape. She was small but not slight. She wore a plain blue dress with a wide white apron tied around her waist. Her sleeves were rolled to the elbow. There was a smudge of flour on one of her forearms. Her hair was the colour of dark honey and was caught up in a simple knot at the back of her head, with a few strands fallen loose at her temples. She walked closer, and now he could see her face. She was not beautiful in the way ladies in town were beautiful. Her mouth was a little too wide. Her nose had a small bump near the bridge, as if she had broken it once as a child, and it had set crooked. Her eyes were grey, and they were watching him with frank curiosity, not flirtation, not fear. "All wrong?" he said. She came into the stall without asking permission. She smelled of bread dough and lavender water, and the faintest trace of cold smoke from a kitchen fire. She took the brush from his hand. Her fingers brushed his, and they were warm and a little rough at the tips. The way the hands of a working woman are rough. "You are pressing too hard on her shoulder," she said. "She has a sore there. See? You can feel it under the coat. There is a little knot in the muscle." She moved his hand to the place. He could indeed feel a small hardness under the smooth hair. "She has been carrying her saddle wrong. The girth is too far forward." "Ah," he said. "You should brush around it, not over it. And when you get home, tell whoever saddles her to move the girth a finger's width back and put a fold of cloth under the front of the saddle for a week." He stared at her. She was not looking at him. She was looking at the mare. Her hand moved slowly over the mare's neck. "You know horses," he said. "My father raised me in a stable yard," she answered. "He wanted a son. He got me. He decided I would have to do." She said this without bitterness. She said it the way one might mention the weather. "And does he still wish for a son?" She glanced at him. Her grey eyes were steady. "He is, I think, mostly resigned. He has gone to London to find me a husband, since I have failed to find one for myself. Now," she added, "are you going to tell me your name, or shall I keep calling you sir until the mare is well?" He had been ready for this question. He had thought of the answer on the road. "Alistair Penn," he said. He took the name of his old valet without quite knowing why. Perhaps because it was the first true name that came to his lips. "I am a clerk in the service of a gentleman in the north. He has sent me with letters." "To whom?" To a name I do not know. I was given the village name only. I am to inquire when I arrive." She nodded. She did not look as if she believed him exactly, but she did not look as if she did not believe him either. She seemed to be a person who set most things aside until they proved useful. "Well, Mr. Penn," she said, "you cannot ride that mare anywhere tonight. The shoulder needs rest. You will stay in the loft above the stable. It is clean. We have no other room. The house is half closed up while my father is away, and the maid and I are the only ones in it. The boy will bring you bread and cheese, and there is water from the pump." "Is that acceptable?" "More than acceptable. I will pay, you will not pay," she said. "We do not take coin for a night in the hay, especially from a man whose horse needs rest." He bowed his head. "Thank you, Miss Ashford." She paused, just for a heartbeat, and looked at him. "I did not tell you my name." He felt the heat rise in his face. He had walked into his own snare in the second minute. "The stable boy mentioned a Miss Maron," he said. "I supposed." She turned back to the mare. "You suppose well, Mr. Penn." She went out of the stall, and the smell of her, bread and lavender and a touch of wood smoke, went with her. Alistair stood for a long moment after she had gone, his hand still resting on the mare's warm side. He had come here to see if a young woman was a fraud. He had not expected the young woman to take a brush out of his hand and tell him he was holding it wrong. He climbed up to the loft as the sky began to turn gold. The hay smelled sweet and dry. The boy brought him bread and cheese and a tin cup of weak beer. He ate slowly, sitting on a folded blanket, while through the open door he watched the last of the light fade from the yard. Then he heard her voice again. Below, she was speaking to someone. Not him, not the boy. A man's voice answered, low and rough. 3 days, miss," the man said. "I cannot wait more than 3 days. You shall have it in 3 days," she answered. Her voice was calm. "I told you. I will sell the bay colt at the Tuesday market and bring the money myself. Your father said 2 weeks ago. My father said many things. I am telling you what will be done. You have known me since I was 6 years old. Have I ever lied to you, Mr. Halsey?" A pause. "No, miss, you have not." "Then go home to your wife and eat your supper and trust me 3 more days." Footsteps, the creak of the gate. Silence. Alistair sat very still. He could just see, through a gap in the boards of the loft, the top of her head as she stood alone in the yard. She did not move for a long minute. She lifted one hand and pressed it against her forehead. Then she lowered it. Then she walked back into the house without a sound. He thought about her then for a long time, lying on his back in the hay. The straw smelled like summer fields cut down. A mouse made a small noise in a far corner. Somewhere outside, an owl called, low and slow. She had been alone with that man. She had been firm. She had not raised her voice. She had not pleaded. And then, in the moment when she thought no one was watching, she had pressed her hand to her head as if to keep something inside it from breaking out. That, he thought, was not a performance. The next morning he was up at first light. The dawn smelled of cold dew and of the iron tang of frost on the gate latch. He went down to the pump and washed. The water was so cold it stung his face like a slap. He cleaned the mare's stall with a fork he found in the corner. He had not done such work since he was a boy, when his father had insisted that he learn what other men's hands did, so that he would never look down on them. Marin came out of the kitchen door as he was finishing. She wore the same blue dress, but the apron was different. This one was striped, and she carried a basket over her arm. "You did not have to do that," she said, looking at the clean stall. "The mare cannot rest in a dirty stall." "No," she agreed. "She cannot." Her eyes flicked over the work he had done, and he saw a small change in her face. Just a small one, as if she had been ready to find one thing and had found another. "You worked in a stable, before you were a clerk?" "When I was a boy." That was her favorite word, he was beginning to think. It was a sound that meant she was filing something away to consider later. "May I help you with anything today?" he asked. "I would not wish to stay another night without earning my keep." She tilted her head. "Can you mend a fence?" "I can try." That is an honest answer. Come, the garden fence is down where the pigs got into the cabbages. If you can hold the post while I drive the nail, we will do well enough." So he held the post. The post was rough oak, and it had splinters that bit into his palms. He had not gripped anything that hard in many years. The hammer in her hand rose and fell. Her arm was small, but the muscle in it was clear under the skin. She did not miss the nails. She bit her lower lip when she swung. Her hair came further loose. The wind smelled of mud, and of bruised cabbage leaves, and of the iron of the nails warming in her hand. "You hold a post well, Mr. Penn," she said, after the third nail. "My great talent." She almost laughed. It was a small sound, and it surprised her. He could see that on her face.